again, welcome back to Discovering the Real God, looking at the question of what makes God answer. And in part one we took, I suppose you might call, a common sense approach to hearing from God. We didn't particularly look at scriptures. What we did, but not in any depth. It's on the video anyway as an aid memoir if you need it. But I wanted to kick off this part of the study by asking you a question, or several questions in fact. What was the last prayer that you had answered? What was the last healing, if you needed to be healed? What was the last healing that you experienced, or indeed, if not for yourself, what was the last healing that you witnessed in church, following prayer in church, that you might not have been instantaneous, but there would have been a report come later from the person involved? And if you didn't see that or witness that healing, what was the last testimony of healing that someone stood up in church and said that they had had a divine healing? So anyone, not necessarily in the church building, but anyone from your fellowship who has given a testimony recently of healing. So if these things are not happening, is Christianity a myth? It's a funny thing for me to say, but what I'm saying is, was Jesus serious when he said, "Greater things than this will you do, because I am going to the Father"? Well, I can answer a question straight away. Christianity as a religion is no different from any other from any other religion on earth. Now, that might be a shocking thing to say, but if you think about it, give me time, we'll look at it. And you might think, well, why are we looking at religion? But I hope that will become obvious as we're talking about getting answers from God. We might seem to be drifting off the subject, but just give it time. Religion, as a definition, is the belief in worship of a human, a superhuman or controlling power. This is the dictionary definition. Especially a personal God or gods, because we have the one God, but there are religions that have one God, and there are religions that have several gods. Indeed, Hindus have 33 million gods. So, to me, there's no chance of relationship in the Hindu faith at all. Do you see, the point begins to evolve as we're talking about religion. So, the belief, it says the belief, I've underlined the belief in my notes, because belief's no good. The demons believe and tremble in our God. The demons believe. Next point is a particular system of faith and worship. And I've underlined the word system. The next one is a pursuit or interest followed with great devotion. Again, I've underlined pursuit, interest and devotion, because all it points to is that religion is a performance. It's a ritual And it's a security in that ritual, because people feel secure in a ritual. If you look at, may I say, the Catholic faith, they are very secure in doing all the things to do with their religion, bowing to statues and the rosary and all the things that they do are all it's habitual. It's cold. It's unfeeling. Religion actually reaches up to God. All religions are reaching up to God. They might be worshipping the God, but they are reaching up to God. There's no, it's a one-way street, in other words. They reach up to God. But in relationship, God comes down to meet with the worshipper. There's a meeting. There is a relationship. There's a discussion. There's even argument and counter-argument, if you like. If you're debating, if God says, "Come, let's reason together," if you present a reasoned argument to God, I believe God hears. I think I can say very boldly that Jesus did not come to this earth to start a religion. I think God has shown us through the history of God's people, and he knew what he was about. He brought the law and everything, the bells, the flutes, the whistles, as we say, perhaps somewhat disparagingly, but nevertheless, God has shown us that religion never ever works. Men love it. I mean, we all love it. I think I would have actually, I would have gone towards Catholicism because I like regimentation. I like things in order. I like things to be habitual. I'm a creature of habit. I like all the strictness of it. I like, and some of the music I like regimental bands and things. I suppose it all comes out in my character that I would have gone towards that as a religion had I not had an encounter with God. So, if you're thinking, well, that's not me, I'm a Christian, well, think about going to a building which is set aside for worship. It's there and it's got the cross at the front perhaps, or a dove. It's inside, it'll have perhaps the stage or platform. It'll have perhaps candles and a cross on it. And when you have the communion, you'll have a separate table perhaps with a fancy tablecloth. The service will be in order. You'll do things the same week in, week out, week in, week out. There'll be an order to everything. Even if you like, you'll say a prayer, or people will say a prayer, and you'll know what they're going to say because they say the same prayer. You put your money in the collection bag. That comes round at a certain point. You even automatically, out of duty, sometimes, I'm not saying, if this isn't you, don't take it on board, but there are people that go and shake the hand of a newcomer because they've seen a newcomer. Pastor says we've got to go and shake the hand of a newcomer. Did you want to? Maybe, maybe not. go through the motions, whether we like it or not. If we attend church, we go through the motions. I'll tell you what, that I do know, God hates it. God hates religion. He hates duty. He hates religion. God is only interested in our heart and our heart towards him. I'll read this. Your new moons and your appointed feast my soul hates. They are a trouble to me. I am weary to bear them. And when you spread forth your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Yes, when you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Wash you, make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. That's in Isaiah. It gives you some idea, Isaiah 1:15. It gives you some idea of how God feels about religion without heart. I'm not saying anybody's got blood on the hands or anything like that. It's an example. Now, Jesus had a lot to say about religion coming into the new covenant. He was quite scathing. And we've talked about Jesus in other studies, so I don't want to go into that again. But you remember how scathing he was about the religious Pharisees, how hard-hearted they'd become, how so far away from God they had come because they'd neglected charity, they'd neglected justice, they'd separated themselves from the people. Today, there are 34,000 examples of Christian denominations throughout the world. 34,000 denominations when there should be none. None at all. Denominations, by their very nature in themselves, are antichrist. If you think about it, they're all born or evolved because man could see that the church they're in or the denomination they're in have either turned into a religious organisation that they no longer want to be part of, or they have an ambition to start something for themselves, which again is antichrist. You may think this is away from the point, but it's entirely the point, because you can't hear God through religion. You cannot hear God. God will not speak to religion. So you have to, again, examine yourself to see if you're in religion rather than relationship. This is the whole point of what I'm saying, because we can't move on unless we eliminate that. It's a big part of what I'm saying. You have to look at your relationship. You have to look at what you're doing. And I'm not saying walk out of church. I'm not saying anything like that. It's what happens inside in your heart. You can be in a church that's going through all the things that I've said, all the order of service and that, but you in your heart and in your private time, in your prayer closet, you have a relationship with God. That's the point. Let's just look at one example of this denominational thing. Let's look at John Wesley. I mean, John Wesley could see that the Church of England was not representative of the will of God. It was self-serving and elitist. Without going into too much of the history, Wesley could see that he could not make change from within. He tried, but all he did was get himself into trouble. If you read his journals, if you read about him. So he set off on his own as an independent and itinerant preacher. He tried to go to churches when he went to different places, but many of the churches would not allow him in, and the vicars or whatever have been instructed by the Church of England hierarchy not to let Wesley in. And And some wanted to, but they were afraid. And Wesley understood that. He preached from place to place the word of God and made disciples in spite of the obvious fact that God was with him. He got nothing but opposition. Well, that tells us something. He travelled about 4,000 miles a year on horseback, and actually he changed the face of this nation to such an extent, I may add, that even the secular historians claim that Wesley and his preaching saved this nation from yet another bloody civil war. In the end, there was nothing for it but that he start his own church, the Methodists, and they were a force to be reckoned with. They grew and grew, and they did mighty works and miracles. They raised the bar of morality in this nation of ours today. But where are they today? Throughout history, the repeat has been the same. Small-scale revivals, large-scale revivals, then the backsliding. The nature of man. We can't help ourselves. We gravitate towards religion. You have to be determined not to be religious. And I probably am in some ways. I must be. By virtue of what I've already said, that there must be something in me that gravitates towards religion. Habit, maybe, I don't know. I try not to be. I mean, what about the church today? If you look at it, one half of the church, well, I don't know what proportions they are, forgive me, but I don't know, I've not looked into it, it's not important. But one part of the church calls themselves the official church, the Orthodox Church, if you will, while the others, who belong to the so-called free church, they condemn the official church for being religious, wearing of regalia and dog collars and all the things, while the so-called free church are similarly religious, although they never admit it. They'll say we're free, but they're not, because they've got all the trappings of the church buildings. They've got the trappings of the, as I said, the table, the altars, and all the things, but without the dog collars. And both sets are, in this day and age, pretty irrelevant as far as the world's concerned. I mean, during this pandemic, as it's been called, the church has not even been designated to be necessary at all. Totally irrelevant. They've shut the churches down. So that's how important the church is to the world these days, and it's very sad. We should be there as a beacon of hope in this age, but we're not. We're irrelevant to the world. Very, very sad. But let's concentrate on us and our relationship with God. Who knows? There might be another Wesley out there. My point is, you will not find answers from God in religion. So let's start looking at the scriptures to dispel the myth that God always answers prayers. This is where in Psalm 66. If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. So we know if there is iniquity or sin, as we can call it, in our hearts, in other words, something that we know about, we must know about it because it said if I regard it, so it's something we know about and have not dealt with it, God will not even listen. We need to keep short accounts with God, in other words. there are accounts in the Bible where it tells us that men are foolish enough to think that what they're doing or what they're up to, God doesn't see it, or it simply doesn't matter to God. Well, I'll probably say this more than once in my studies and in my vlogs, that absolutely everything is important to God. Absolutely everything we do. If you look at the detail that he put into the temple, the finite detail of everything that went into the temple, it's absolutely astonishing. The tabernacle, then the stone temple, all of that detail had to be absolutely right. And God warned, make sure you do it according to what I've instructed you. Why is that important? We are the temple. This is the new covenant. We are the new temple. So similarly, don't you think God's interested in the detail within us? Surely it has to be that way. Surely he is bothered how you are, how you behave, how you live your life, the detail of it all. It must follow. We can't dismiss that, surely not. It matters to God. Everything matters to God, absolutely everything. We can't say on one hand that, God's interested in everything we do. He's even interested if we need a parking space, or if we've lost a key to the door that we need to find and he helps us find it. We can't turn round and say that, on the other hand, he's not interested in the things we do against him, the sin, the words that come out are not edifying. Surely we can't say that doesn't matter. We can't have it both ways. So, look at this. Woe to them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark. And they say, who sees us? And who knows us? Isaiah 29, that's from. In other words, we don't see the need to confess. Might be something minor we think is of no consequence, like I've said. But it might be that you've fallen out with your neighbour. And God talked about living in peace with our neighbours. It might think that, it might be like something you take from work. Like you might be nicking pencils or something like that, just putting one in your pocket when you leave. It's theft. And you might think, that doesn't matter. It's only a pencil. Being spiteful to people, your brother or your sister, causing controversy within the brethren, causing unrest by arguing about doctrine. So people do that, just to wind others up. Now that's a wicked thing. God sees that. He doesn't like it. They find it amusing. But I tell you what, God's not amused by it. Some men think they're God's gift, and they treat their wives like that. They treat their wives contemptuously, if you like, because they're, to use the vernacular, they're chauvinists. And, they might not even realise that that's the way they're treating their wives. But it says here, likewise, you husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge. That's people. Giving honour to the wife as the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together in the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. Plain enough. 1 Peter 3, that's it. was going to go on to talk about my wife, so I'll have to start the next session to talk about the way my wife is, because I think it's worth saying. I've come to the end. I don't want to go on for too long, but I've come to the end of this session, and I'll pick it up in the next one. Okay. Till the next time, God bless you. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.